Ah, spiders!
Are you ready?
Hey, it's Garrick, and I'm back already. So, if you haven't watched the previous video, I'll put a link up here somewhere. But this is the foam-filled papercraft piece that I literally did, I don't know, an hour ago. Spent some time sanding it, and now we're ready to give it a hard candy coating. No, I want to cover it to get some of these divots that are in here from just how the foam cured, and to give it a nice smooth skin for when I go to mold it. Now, normally you'd use Bondo, but if you've been watching any of these videos, you know that I hate Bondo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my West Systems epoxy, and I'm going to add a inert filler to it to give it a Bondo-like consistency. And that filler that I'm going to use today, because there are plenty that you can buy, from micro balloons to specially formulated fillers to give your resin particular properties. The only thing my filler is going to do is make it smell like a baby's ass. I am using baby powder or talc with fragrance in it. It will just thicken up the epoxy resin without inhibiting the cure and let me apply it like a autofiller paste instead of a fluid resin. So let me get my resin ready. Gotta love those pump systems. I'm working in a well-ventilated area, and I'm not mixing up large batches, but I know I should be wearing a respirator. I'm not, so you guys can hear me better, so, but if you're doing this, it's always a safe bet to wear a respirator. Again, this stuff is much lower VOC than a polyester-based compound, but still, safety first. You only have one set of lungs, and probably want to keep them for a while. So this is more of a eyeball game than anything else. You kind of want to throw some in there, mix it in, and just keep on doing that until you hit the consistency of resin that you want, or filler, I should say. Yeah, it's still very liquidy. Talc is so fine, it mixes in very, very easily. Still a bit too runny. What I am going to do is take a little of it at its present state and brush on a quick coat with a little cheap disposable brush to get it into some of the small bubbles and nooks and crannies in this foam. And then I'll continue to add talc afterwards for more of a finishing coat. So we've got a light coat on there. Going to add more talc to really get this thick. Now I'm using the West Systems epoxies. Those are a pricier boat-making epoxy or woodworking epoxy. Actually, per ounce, especially when you compare them to urethane resins, they're not too terribly bad price-wise. Very convenient to use. But you can use the same method with just off-the-shelf 5-minute, 15-minute, 30-minute epoxy that you get in like the 2 big squeeze bottles. Haven't tried it with the 5-minute. I suppose if you needed to work on a piece really quickly, I would be fine. I haven't tried it yet though, so if you do, let me know. But the West System stuff starts off thinner and less viscous, so you have to add a little more to it. But we're getting there. We're almost to the point I want to be at. Again, all of these uses, if I could speak, I'm using the resin, the epoxy, for cosmetic purposes only. I have no idea what this does to its load-bearing characteristics or any of the other properties of the resin. So if you're building a boat with it, or a house, or something that's going to support a lot of weight or anything important like that, I would use the manufacturer recommended additives. If you're making a horn for a comic book character's headpiece, yeah, I'm pretty sure I can get away with using baby powder. Okay, now we're starting to actually get into like a putty consistency. This is kind of where I want to be at. It's a little harder to mix. These mixing sticks that I've been using, they're just bamboo barbecue skewers that you can pick up at like a Fry's or a Kroger or something like that. I like them because they're so long, so when I'm using these deeper set cups, I don't have to like reach my hand all the way down in there with like like I would with a popsicle stick or something like that. And then if I don't need it to be as long, I can cut it in half, and I have 2 mixing sticks. So, just another little shop tip on how to save money and make your life easier. So yeah, now we're about at the consistency of cake batter, which is where I want it to be. I want this to have some vertical cling. I can take that same brush. I'm just gonna brush some of this goop on. Now I probably mixed up more than I needed to use, which is the one drawback of having a pump system for your resin. There is a minimum amount that it dispenses every time, whether or not you need to use all of it, so. But, oh well, the convenience outweighs any kind of product loss. So this is going to be super exciting. I think you get the gist. Paint and goop on. We'll skip ahead to the next part. Okay, so we let this set up. It's completely hardened now, as you can see. We've got a nice, smooth-ish coating on there to start working on sanding this down and getting a better shape out of it. When it comes to sanding, I use a lot of different things. To rough things into shape, I like using larger files. But for a lot of the detail work, I tend to buy the big sheets of the wet-dry sandpaper. I find it works the best. I get the 3M brand or the Gator brand. The 220, 320, 400 is usually your best bet. The 220 is going to be for getting rid of material without digging too deep into your piece. And with this, I want to sand this horn smooth without digging back down into the foam. So I'm going to take a pass over it, kind of try to get it all sanded out, see if there's any place where I'm going to need to add any kind of spot filler, or maybe even make up another small batch of this epoxy paste. So let's cue up a fast forward of me sanding. Super fun times. So after quite a bit of sanding, this is where we're at. I started using that 220 grit wet or dry sandpaper, but as you can see, it gummed up really quickly. I was not expecting to have to remove as much material as I did, so I switched over to my trusty files. I don't understand why more people don't use files, especially these large ones. They are like sandpaper, like infinite sandpaper. They just never go away. So I've roughed the whole shape out, gotten rid of all the divots, except for this one big one on this side. I'm not exactly sure what happened here, but we are going to use some 5-minute epoxy because I hate Bondo. So I've just got some cheap Ace Quick Set epoxy, and I'm going to mix up a little bit of that and use it to patch that hole and then sand it smooth with the rest of it. Well, after I patched that divot with some 5-minute epoxy, I did a whole lot of really boring work that even when I time-lapsed it, just didn't seem like it was worth putting in here. So I'll just explain to you really quickly what happened. Sanded the whole thing smooth. Would hit it with a coat of this sandable primer from Bondo. Sanded again to see if there was any divots or pinholes. If I found any, I would fill them with this glazing and spot putty. This is just a 1-part putty that cures through evaporation, so it dries really fast. You're able to sand it very easily. Repeated that process several times. Actually sanded a section down too thin to the point where it cracked and kind of indented down into the foam, so I had to patch it again with some more 5-minute epoxy and talc. But now we're at the point that I've gone through and wet sanded it up to a 600 grit, which is probably smoother than I need to for this particular piece. So yeah, got my finished horn. Well, I say finished. I've got my horn ready to move on to the next step, which unfortunately involves this. Anyways, thank you so much for watching another one of my videos. If you like this, I've got more coming all the time. Please subscribe to my YouTube page. If you want to see more of mine and my wife's work, you can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/noonesdesigns, on Twitter at noonesdesigns, or on our website at noonesdesigns.com. Thanks again for watching.